Dating and courting in post-war America. And so that's basically the period late 1940s, 1950s, early 1960s for our purposes today. So if you remember, 1920s and 1930s had their own system of dating. And in the 1920s and 1930s, really the way to show that you were popular was by dating in numbers. So for a young woman, the number of men who ask her out and the number of dates she goes on, that's what demonstrates she's a popular girl. And for a young man, same thing. The number of girls who will go out with him, the number of dates he's able to have. So popularity in numbers. However, the ultimate goal is still marriage. Overwhelmingly, people expect to get married. And so out of all that dating is going to come settling down on one partner. It really changes after World War II. Instead, the focus is on what they call going steady. And so you date around a little bit, but the goal is to find that partner, that one person, and you do this in high school if possible, and you make a commitment to them, which may be symbolized by rituals such as giving them a pin or some other gift, or him giving the girl a ring, or his Letterman jacket, or various ways of marking their commitment to each other. And ideally, that relationship is supposed to last until marriage. Doesn't always, but that was the goal. And what makes that more popular is that people are getting married really young. Women about age 20. This is much younger than the previous decades. And men, of course, a little later, but not much. So heading towards marriage from going steady is more of a possibility, because some of those women who are getting married are 19, 18, 17, maybe even 16 in some cases. What does this mean for Black young people in terms of dating? Well, particularly those who end up at HBCUs. And a large part of HBCU life was dictated by the behavior codes. Universities and colleges, and this is all universities and colleges at the time, not just Black ones, thought of themselves as being in loco parentis, taking the role of a parent to their students. And so they pretty much all have requirements like how long when you have to get home at night in the dorm, rules about how you have to behave in various ways. But the HBCUs tend to be stricter. They have codes about your behavior in terms of when you have to get back to the dorm, but also where you can go, whether you can go off campus, rules about how you dress, how you have to appear in public, and a wide variety of things, because they saw themselves as shaping their students to be respectable members of society, to represent the race well. At the center of HBCU life for students was the Greek system. And for men, the fraternities were rather like white fraternities in that they were a center of social life and dating. And later on in life, they might well help you with career contacts. Where you really see a difference is the sororities. White sororities were focused on social life and ultimately finding a husband. And in fact, the joke used to be that girls go to college for an MRS degree. So it was much more focused on a social events. Black women's sororities were founded from the very beginning with the idea that, yes, of course it's going to be about dating and parties, but more than that, it's going to be about preparing you to be a professional woman and to have a future career and have career contacts, so that business professional aspect that fraternities have are embedded in Black sororities as well. Colorism is a factor. It's not surprising that if you look at beauty queens at HBCUs, for a very long time, for decades, they are light-skinned, pretty much overwhelmingly. It does eventually change. But that's not until like the 60s, 70s, 80s, depending on the school. Interestingly enough, if you look outside of HBCUs and that sort of professional class, you also will see surveys that were done in the mid-20th century, which found that a lot of African Americans actually prefer brown people, not too light, not too dark, and that there are different opinions about color. So colorism exists, it's an important factor, but it's not the only way of looking at color in the Black community. Finally, one place that you can sort of resist the pressure of life at an HBCU is by having a radio in your dorm room. And the thing about radios is you can get the R&B stations. HBCUs, among many other things, are very much about proper music. And proper music is classical music. It's older music. But what the young people want to listen to is R&B. And R&B is rebellious. It's very sexual, a lot of it. It's not the kind of stuff that respectable young people are supposed to listen to. So if you want to resist in a way that won't get you thrown out of college, you listen to R&B in your dorm room at night. Dating under Jim Crow was difficult in some ways. Part of it is about finding safe zones, restaurants, movie theaters, entertainment places that you can safely go to as a Black person with a date. And not everywhere would be accepting. And that's true in the South, but it's also true in the North as well. There are a number of restaurants, a number of movie theaters, places like that would not accept Black customers. In the North as well. So finding safe places to be. There is also the danger of white harassment. And I'm going to give you a story about Betty Jean Owens in 1959, which is an extreme example of the danger. Most of the time what you're talking about is verbal harassment, racial slurs, being shoved off the sidewalk, things that grate at you. What happened to Betty Jean Owens was much more extreme. Owens had gone to a dance at FAMU in Florida, and she and her friend and their dates were out in a car after the dance looking for a private place to sit and park. Unfortunately, there was a group of 4 young white men who had decided they were going to go out and find a Black woman to rape. They found Owens and her friends. They had a shotgun. They had knives. They forced them out of the car. They forced the Black men to kneel. They kidnapped Owens while her friend managed to escape. And they took her with them in their car, and they raped her and physically abused her. The thing that makes this story a little bit different is that when her friends go to the police for help, the sheriff's not there. His usual deputies aren't there. Who's been left in charge is actually a 19-year-old white intern. And this intern, for whatever reason, takes this very seriously. He takes the friends with him. They go out in his car. He has the other deputies search, and they find the car that Owens has been kidnapped in. And they pull them over after a car chase, and they're talking to them, and they hear her whimpering in the back of the car because she's been tied up and gagged. And so they arrest the white men. They take Betty Jean Owens to the hospital, and they actually have a resolution to it. Even at that stage, the white men do not expect anything to happen to them. They're laughing and joking on their way to jail. However, the FAMU students start a series of public protests over the case and what happened to her. Those protests gained national attention with the help of some civil rights organizations. And when it comes time to try them, Owens testifies. The prosecutor does his job properly. And amazingly enough, they are convicted of her rape. Now, they are not given the death penalty, which is what Black men were usually given for committing rape in the South, but they were sent to prison. Halfway justice, according to a lot of Black people at the time. But still, it was a step forward. In terms of places to go that were safe and you could have fun, a lot of times people would go to house parties or church socials, places where you could be with friends, you could dance, you could have a good time, and you didn't have to worry about any dangers or harassment. Gender roles in marriage. The thing about this is there is intense pressure on women to be housewives in the 1950s. That's what they're supposed to do according to public culture, according to what they're taught in school, in their domestic science classes, according to what they learn from TV and radio, and even things like when presidential candidate Adlai Stevenson goes to talk at the commencement of one of the girls' colleges, he lectures them on how it's all nice and good that they've gotten this education, but what really matters, are they going to be good homemakers? So there's a lot of pressure there. The reality of it is, though, that it's not working quite like that. A lot of families, we're talking about white families here, a lot of them find living in the suburbs and buying appliances and new cars and wanting to give their children things, and they find that they need more money. And so what becomes an increasing pattern is women will go back to work, generally after their children go to school. And they're not supposed to have careers, and most of them don't. Instead, they get jobs that aren't seen as a distraction from their duties to their husband and their children. Things like secretary work, sales clerks, various types of labor that is seen as a job rather than a career. And it's not all women, it's not even most women to start, but over that period of time, there's an increasing number of them who are married women, but they're working married women. And that's true of white women. When we talk about Black women and Black wives, overwhelmingly Black families accepted the idea of needing a dual income. There are some Black couples who the husband supports the wife and she stays at home. It's unusual to be able to make that work, but it did happen in some cases. But for the most part, the acceptance is that both partners will have to work. And for a lot of women, that means jobs like custodial work. It means jobs like janitorial work, factory work, depending, work in laundries, various kinds of hard labor for the most part. But for those graduates of the HBCUs, for professional women, it can mean a professional career as something like a social worker or a lawyer even, or a librarian or a teacher or various other positions. And that works two ways. First of all, professional Black men frequently marry wives who are professionals as well. So that's pretty common. The second thing, though, is it means that if something happens to the marriage, you have a backup career. One that you would have already have been pursuing, but that now can take center stage. So in conclusion, post-war period, the switch to going steady, getting serious very young, the reality that if you are Black and dating under Jim Crow, that you have to seek safe places to date, the pressure of maintaining respectability that is placed on young people by places like HBCUs, But then also this reality of women's work, that there's the ideal of what women are supposed to be doing, particularly white women, and the reality of what increasing numbers of them are doing instead.